Good evening, everyone. Apologize for starting a little late. The roll call show that Councillor Spitz is absent this evening. All other councillors are present. Agenda review, I don't believe we have any additions to the agenda. So moving on to approval of minutes of June 11th and June 25th, 2018. I'll take a motion.
Move approval. Second.
All right, anyone have any questions, comments, or corrections? All right, hearing none, I will take a vote. All those in favor of the minutes? Lori, okay. Passes unanimously. Moving on to public hearings. Public hearing A, to consider a vitulers license for Big Shoe Inc., doing business as Subway, 10 Stillwater Avenue. Hospi Food Service Inc., doing business as Subway, 53 Main Street. And Cam Rep Inc., doing business as Spotlight Cinemas, 6 Stillwater Avenue. Mr. Mylan.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Mylan, the Director of Community Development, and I'm here to tell you that all of the inspections are performed for these applications, and staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the issuing of these licenses? Hearing none, I will close public hearing A. Move on to public hearing B, to consider a Class 1 malt, spirituous, and vinous liquor license for Grateful Pie, 6 Stillwater Avenue.
Inspections have been performed, and the staff recommends approval of the license.
Does anyone wish to speak for or against the issuing of these licenses, or to say anything about the new business? Susan?
I could say something for them that's more promotional and not getting paid to say it such. That I visited the Spencer's ice cream that's under new ownership of someone who just recently graduated high school. The ice cream's excellent, and they developed a flavor that's, it turns out it's not served with Spencer's, it's only served at the Grateful Pie, which is a strawberry jalapeno.
Ooh.
Which sounded really interesting. I actually drove to Spencer's the day they completed it. I drove to Spencer's to get a scoop of it. Though it turns out we can provide you with a sample, but we're not serving it here. You have to go to the Grateful Pie for strawberry jalapeno. So
Sounds great.
in the world of food, that's
Yeah, great. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against issuing of this license? Hearing none, I will close public hearing B.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will move on to acknowledgements by council members. Cheryl, do you have any?
I think the last time I acknowledged the weather. I'd like to continue that acknowledgement, but I think what I love the most is that there's so many people out and about on the Orono Land Trust trails, and they're out on the river, they're paddling, they're biking, and the municipal pool, as a person who chauffeurs children around for a living sometimes. So yeah, I think that we are in full swing right now, and I think it's just lovely to live in Orono right now.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. Megan?
And lovely as it is, it's a good time to enjoy our new parklet. And I just want to acknowledge everybody who is involved in the building and the beautiful flowers. It's really wonderful, and it just popped up overnight. And I think folks around town were kind of stunned by it in a really good, kind of funny way. And so I just really want to commend all of the folks in the town and in the beautification committee that put that together. I think it's a really wonderful thing to have in town.
Great, thanks. Tom?
I just ditto Megan's comment. I watched them unload it, and that was quite a process. Our town crew did a great job with it, and town employees made it, so it's a real nice addition.
Thank you. Laurie?
I just want to, acknowledge Artsapalooza was fabulous. Again this year, we're very lucky to have the Stillwater Community Arts organize that and have many people from our community and surrounding communities participate.
Great. Sam?
Yeah, just echoing the whole crew, both Parklet and Artsapalooza, two fantastic things. I have heard some very rare comments that are kind of like, what? About the Parklet, and I think it's fantastic. I sort of explained the whole process behind it and some of the thinking behind it and where this is going. But also rest assured, this is going to go away when snow flies, people. So don't you fret one little bit. Thanks.
Great. Well, I just have one acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge, on behalf of council, Sophie Wilson for her tremendous efforts on behalf of the town, and to let her know that council has nominated her for the Stackpole Manager of the Year Award, and so we got that in. But from there on, we're not telling you anything. All right. Moving on to that, from there, unfinished business. I don't believe we have any. Consent agenda. I will take a motion to move the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That means that all the licenses were passed. So moving on to new business. Order 18-125, order appointing Jeffrey Wingard as an RSU 26 director, filling a current vacancy until the annual municipal election in March 2019. I will take a motion, please.
I enthusiastically move to approve that.
Right. And a second?
I'm happy to second it.
All right. Sophie, is that you? Or okay. I don't know.
So earlier this year, we received notice from the RSU that Michelle Smith was going to resign because she had taken a job out of state, which left her seat vacant. Under state law, town council is required to appoint an interim to fill until the next annual municipal election. So in Orono, that is March of each year. We advertised the vacancy, hoping to get someone, and we ended up with 3 very talented individuals that submitted their letters of interest. Along with their talent, there were also individuals that have previously given quite a bit of service, volunteer service to the community. Council went through a process where it interviewed all 3 candidates, and ultimately the council workshop recommended to council the appointment of Jeff Wingard, and I think the reason for that was his history as a director on the RSU board. There was some discussion about feeling like he could come up to speed and be a little bit more impactful in a very short amount of time. And his experience as an educator with curriculum development and interest in some of the issues that are facing the school right now around facilities and hiring process, evaluation process. I think I have captured the bulk of that discussion, but here we are today for you to make a final decision.
If I may, I would just add that I thought the interviews were very important in this process, and although all the candidates interviewed very well, I thought Jeff's interview was just excellent. That certainly was impactful to me in making that decision.
Yes, I think all of council felt it was a difficult decision to make, but anyone else have any comments or? All right, hearing none, thank you, Sophie. I'll take a vote on Order 18-125. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 18-126, order determining that it is in the best interest of the town to dispose of certain property, town-owned property pursuant to the Town of Orono Ordinances, Section 2-150C at 30 Island Avenue, Tax Map 27-4, Lot 87, sale through sealed bid offered to general public. Public hearing was held on March 13th, 2017. I will take a motion, please.
So moved.
And-
Second.
All right. And I think we need some background.
So the town long ago foreclosed on 30 Island Avenue for non-payment of property taxes, real estate taxes. We then went through a process trying to sell it back to the owners or the heirs of the owners, and that didn't work. So in March of 2017, we came back to council and we said, so what we've learned about the property is that there are some issues with an abutter. We could sell it through sale to an abutter and try to clear up that issue. At that point, council was very clear that they wanted demolition of the building to be part of the requirement for the sale. And just as we were getting ready to enact that sale, take the final step to make the negotiation, we learned that another property owner, a butter, also had an issue, a boundary dispute with 30 Island Avenue. So I went back to the table and to see if we could reasonably solve the issue with the 2 abutters. The issue that we have is that in order to solve the issue, we would require survey, it would require new deeds being created, it would require expense on the town's behalf. If you were to simply sell the land as is, where is, with no warranties, with a requirement that the structures be demolished, and the reason for that would be for safety, not for any other purpose, and that the lot be cleaned up, it would allow, I think, one of those disputes to be settled, to just simply take the structures down. And the other one, by the time we have invested the money in legal fees to work this all the way through, it just doesn't seem to me to be a reasonable investment of our resources. So, in the interim, I have received several inquiries from the general public about this property. And when I say things like, well, council would really want the structures to come down, that doesn't seem to be deterring people. So, for me, when you think about the hierarchy of selling property, for a tax foreclosure, the highest level on that hierarchy would be through sealed bid, and that you'd start doing other things if there were specific reasons that would have you do that. So my thought was, let's save the town, we could save the town the expense of the resources and simply sell this through sealed bid, sell our interest in the property, and let the boundary dispute on the other side become the new property owner's issue. So that's my background.
All right. Anyone have any questions or comments?
I think that makes perfect sense. I would be very reluctant to invest any town money in trying to settle that boundary dispute.
Yep. I agree. All right. Hearing no other comments or questions, I will take a vote on Order 18126. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 127, order authorizing the town manager to, in consultation with the Finance Committee Chair and the Town Council Chair, invest up to $1.2 million with the First Advisors utilizing instruments allowed in the Town of Orono investment policy, maintaining an approximate asset allocation of bonds at 73%, stocks at 25%, and cash at 2%, and using the strategy detailed in the First Advisor's proposal dated April 6, 2018. We'll take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
All right. You're on tonight.
So I don't know how detailed you want me to get, so if I get too detailed, you just let me know. Currently, there are two types of pools of money that we would be looking to invest. One is the cemetery fund, which currently is in 100% bonds, and the other is reserve funds, which currently are sitting in our general checking account, earning 1.9% interest. So, with regard to the cemetery funds, what we know is keeping them at 100% bond exposes them to a higher degree of risk than if we diversified the portfolio a little bit. So the First Advisors came in to talk with us about that portfolio allocation for the cemeteries, and they would be looking at allocating up to 33% in stocks, which hopefully would help balance the portfolio a little bit. With regard to the reserve funds, they're talking about a little bit further diversification. So it's 25% stocks, 73% bonds, and 2% cash. But they're looking at really trying to diversify within both the types of bonds that they will purchase and the types of stocks that they will purchase. And that was laid out in the packet information. And the goal here is to be able, when the bond market starts to go down, to have stocks tend to go up, and to help balance. Right now, what we see is in our flight to safety to keep bonds, we're actually not making even the amount of money at times that we would in our bank account. So the goal with this would be to have me work with the Finance Committee Chair and the Council Chair to invest up to $1.2 million. Now, 300,000 of that is already peeled off and invested in bonds. Those are the perpetual care funds. So it would be another 900, up to 900,000. We've got approximately $8 million in the bank right now. So between the town and WPCF and our reserve accounts, I would be comfortable with starting at that level. And giving it to the First advisors to manage on our behalf and checking in 3 months. Every 3 months, we had talked about a quarterly check-in and probably a annual visit from them to talk us through how things are performing. But the thought being we would kind of dip our toes in as opposed to create, go wild with this.
Just add a couple of points to this discussion. We chose the First Advisors as our bankers several years ago, specifically because of the opportunity to diversify our investment. That was a big fact, not the only fact, but a big fact. The strategy they're proposing is the same strategy currently used by them in a number of communities in the state of Maine. And they have shared with us the results over short-term and long-term of using that strategy, and it's pretty convincing that we can do better by the town by paying more attention to how we use our reserve funds.
I'd also like to say that when it comes to money, I am not a risk taker in any way, shape, or form. So when even investments are discussed, just even in large concept, I'm immediately wary. And I walked into this meeting being very wary of it. But I was impressed by what I heard in that meeting and some of the specific things. They talked a lot about sort of how they make the risk relatively low, which is these varied investments that are constantly shifting. But one question that I asked them that I really liked the answer to was, how much awareness do we have over these investments? If we're constantly shifting these tiny investments everywhere, how do we know the town isn't investing in a corporation that we would have ethical objections to? And they already were prepared for that and mentioned that they do practice socially responsible investments because they're aware that municipalities have these ethical concerns. And the thing that, and again, they are not brokers, right? That also kind of was convincing for me. They're not getting commissions based on these investments, if anyone was wary of that. And then finally, a very good sales pitch on their part. They showed us some numbers of what we would have made had we been practicing this investment over the last 4 years, and that was quite convincing. So.
Sophie, as part of the 1.2 million, will that be some of the WPCF reserves too? That's not in addition to?
No, I would put all of them in together, and then on paper we would allocate any growth so that if it was 75-25% split, as an example, the growth would be split that way as well.
And I have a question too, Sophie. Is the portfolio available? Is it accessible to the general public, or to see where the money's being invested and shifting around and everything?
So the portfolio is available to staff. I would say if a member of the general public wanted to know what funds we were invested in, we could provide that to them. We don't, as a matter of course, normally give people access to things that would have bank account information on them, account information. Yeah, so the way that we have access to them is through online banking, which we'll be able to look in. So it would be a matter of people wanted to know, we could print it off and redact the account information and provide it that way.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right. Hearing none, I will take a vote on Order 18127. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 18128, order authorizing the purchase of one 2018 Ford Utility Police Interceptor from Augusta Ford of Augusta in the amount of $33,084 plus $5,450 for equipment purchase and setup through Custom Installations LLC of Levant, and graphics work done by Graphic Design of Old Town for $735. Total cost is $39,269 to be drawn from the FY19 capital equipment budget. Take a motion, please.
Move approval?
Second? I don't know what you got left to say.
Good evening. Josh Ewing, Police Chief. This falls right along with a cycle that we've been using for many years now to kind of replace aging cars. One cruiser 1 year, two the next, and it cycles back and forth because of the rate that we put the miles on the cars. We want to get them off the main line so they're not being used every day once they hit a certain mileage, 80 or 90,000, because they start, when they're used that heavily, they start to incur more repair costs and more downtime for the rest of the fleet. So there'll be one car this year. We put out there's a state bid that is granted to a dealer. We then add features onto the car that we believe we need for additional lighting, essentially additional lighting. So these cars come with some built-in right from the factory emergency lights that we can start right with, and then we add a couple more to give it a little bit more visibility. So the cost is a little bit higher than the state bid, but it's because we add on what we order from the factory. And the bid went to Augusta Ford. We've used them in the past. They're consistently, they provide a good product, and they're user-friendly, and if we have issues with the car. And Custom Installations provides the great equipment installation, so where everything gets taken out of one car, it gets reinstalled, the new equipment gets put into the cruiser. There is some electronics work that takes place, and that company's been very efficient, very professional, and we've had very little issues ever. And then the graphics are right through Old Town Graphics, and they already have the design that we use, so it's already in his shop, and it's just a simple application to the car.
So, Josh, are we to the point now where we can just use the same equipment? We're not
Almost.
almost.
So we have 6 of the SUVs.
Okay.
Still have an older Taurus, the Taurus sedan style, which we will move to. Right now, the captain is driving an older Fusion, a 2011 Fusion. That will get repurposed to the town as a kind of a fleet vehicle for people going out of town to training. And then it actually may go to the life safety department, fire department. And then the older sedan would go to the captain, and we would cycle out one of the cruisers that's being taken off the main line as a spare car. So next year, the whole line will be SUVs, and we'll just pray that Ford doesn't change anything after that. You're right.
Anybody else have any other questions?
No, so we're
comments?
basically keeping all the vehicles now, we're just sort of repurposing them within the town.
This will be the second year we've repurposed a car. Yes, typically we would put them out to bid once we take them offline.
To sell them.
To sell them out to bid, and it goes back into the general fund. We've had some opportunities in the last couple of years to save a vehicle and repurpose it to another department.
So I just want to be careful with the term repurpose because Councillor Perry is here. He does not like repurposing. But to be clear, last year when we repurposed a vehicle, it was looking at the current code car, looking at the police cruiser that was coming out of service and saying the code car was in much worse shape. Let's move that to, so the cruiser went to code and the code car went away. For this year, with our life safety program, we were seeing a lot of conflicts between general use of the pickup truck by the police, by the fire department during the day and the inspections happening. And we were having a life safety inspector having to use his own vehicle, which we would just much prefer it to be a town vehicle for a variety of reasons. So that's where the Fusion is going, with the understanding that if somebody has to go to training out of town, it's a lot cheaper to put gas in a car that we own as opposed to pay mileage. There will be some bartering with the car.
And I think that that car's got a lot of life left in it for another department, whereas if we were to put it out to bid, you probably wouldn't get, we don't typically get a lot of money back for those when they're put out to bid, so I think it's gonna be put to good use, and there'll be some value out of it for several years to come.
What's the mileage on the car that?
That one has 80,000 miles on the Fusion.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? All right, hearing none, I will take a vote on Order 18-128. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Order 18-129, order authorizing a capital equipment budget adjustment transferring $20,000 from the Public Works medium-duty truck to the budget for the light-duty truck. Take a motion, please.
Move approval?
Second?
All right.
I can take it. Good evening, Rob Yerxa, Public Works Director. When we initially developed the capital equipment investment plan for the Public Works side of things, we identified 2 units that we thought would definitely be our priorities for replacement, a 2006 pickup truck and a 2006 medium-duty truck. We budgeted to replace those with like vehicles in the, as we initially developed the equipment budget. As we worked our way through, kind of went through a needs process, what we really need, what do we really need to replace these units with like vehicles, or could we find a better spot in the middle that would better suit our needs? And as it turned out, we worked our way through that process, and it was the case. We needed something a little bit heavier on the light side, and we could work with something a little bit lighter on the heavier side, and still spend about the same amount of money. So this order is basically a budget adjustment to allow for a heavier light-duty vehicle in compensation for a lighter medium-duty vehicle to better suit the department's needs.
You can keep track of all that.
What's that? I'm
I
sorry.
said you can keep track of all the lights in the.
I have a spreadsheet.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about this? This is not the actual purchase. This is just a budget adjustment. All right, hearing none, I will take a vote on Order 18-129. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to 18-130, order authorizing the purchase of a 2018 Ram 4500 4x4 chassis in stock from Darling's Auto Group of Bangor in the amount of $33,815 with a 3 CY aluminum dump body from F3 Manufacturing of Waterville for $11,042 and a 2. I don't know what that is. 5 CY Fisher
Cubic yard sander.
cubic yards. Okay, thank you. 2.5 cubic yards Fisher Polycaster sander for $6,145 and a 9-foot 6-inch Fisher V plow for $5,250 installed from Darling's Auto Group, and an additional $5,000 for miscellaneous purchases for a total price of $61,252 to be drawn from the FY19 capital equipment budget. Take a motion, please.
Move approval?
Second?
Yes, thank you. So the original budget for this purchase was $45,000. The adjustment brings it up to $65,000. We would have originally purchased a light-duty 3/4 ton pickup truck. This purchase is now a 4500, so it's about a 1.5 ton truck. It's a little bit bigger, but not a huge truck. A lot of elements to this purchase. The chassis, so it's just the truck and the cab. Then we upfit that chassis by putting a body, so it's going to be a dump body that is made of aluminum, so it should last forever. Won't be affected by our salt use, those kinds of things. We've struggled. That's one of the reasons why we're replacing the trucks is salt damage, and the aluminum will be much more resilient to that. With a hopper sander in the back, so same kind of deal that you see now. spreads sand and salt out the back, with a 9.5-foot V-plow on the front.
Any questions or comments?
Rob, can you say something about the miscellaneous purchases of $5,000?
Yeah, so that's going to be the strobe lights, the two-way radios. These trucks are pretty high, so I've got to put side steps on them so people can get in and out. There's a number of purchases like that. I don't anticipate spending $5,000, but I didn't want to have to come back to you to ask for more. That is a hard not to exceed number. Just the two-way radio itself will be about $1,200, so it'll be probably close to the $2,500. But
What color's the truck going to be?
the 4500 is red, and this is an in-stock truck that we've actually seen and inspected, and it's pretty straightforward work truck, no power or anything, but it's going to do the job. It's going to be a nice truck for us. This is the heavier light truck. Yes, it's going to look like a little dump truck, like a 1-ton dump truck that you would see. Very similar to the one that Joe bought Joe Madigan at the treatment plant bought last season.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a vote on 18130. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to the lighter, heavier truck. Order 18131, order authorizing the purchase of a 2018 Ram 5500 4x4 chassis in stock from Darling's Auto Group of Bangor in the amount of $46,617 with a 3 cubic yard aluminum dump body from F3 Manufacturing of Waterville for $9,634 and a 3.5 cubic yard Downeaster sander for $5,862 and a hydraulic system and controls, wing, plow, and body for $31,862 installed from Viking Sives of Sydney, plus an additional $5,000 for miscellaneous purchases for a total price of $98,975 to be drawn from a FY19 capital equipment budget. Take a motion, please.
Move approve. Second?
All right. Okay, Rob?
So this is replacing our GMC 5500 2006 that you see, focusing a lot in the downtown area, plows some of the smaller streets. This is a 5500, so it's a similar class of the truck that we're replacing. It's a little bit smaller, and actually in the budget we were thinking about making that a little bit bigger, but I don't think we necessarily need to. The big difference between the earlier purchase and this one is that this truck will have a plow and a wing on it. It'll still have a hopper sander, but it'll also have a hydraulic system, a transmission-driven hydraulic system that will actually allow the controls to be in the cab that will operate all of those things all together. The other one will have electric over hydraulic, which is a little bit different. This one will have a hydraulic system, so it'll drive the sander, allow the plow and wing to go up, and do the dump body. So that's the big difference between the two purchases. Like I said, it'll look a little different. It's going to have the similar type of body, aluminum body on it, a little bit bigger, but it'll have a plow and a wing on it, which is really what we need for these smaller streets. A lot of times without the wing, the 5500 would plow a road, and then we'd have to circle back around with a truck that did have a wing to push it back far enough. Now we won't have to do that. Also, this size of truck is going to be ideal for handling our new roundabout structure up on Rangeley Road. So you'll probably see it going around that thing a few times too. So this is a big upgrade for us, both operationally and equipment-wise.
Great. Does anyone have any questions?
And as I see in the background materials, there was an option that was going to save us $1,500. However,
Yes,
there's
I'm
a
sorry, I
catch.
didn't mention that. This is not the lowest priced vehicle we found. The one that we're proposing to buy is about $1,500 more, but it's in stock, so we can get it to the to Vikings to get all the things put together. If we were to go with a lower priced one, which is only about $1,500 more, it could take us as much as 6 months to just get the truck here. We'd basically buy it off the manufacturing line. And to me, that's, and then it's another 3 months or so to get it set up, so we wouldn't have it this winter, period. So I think for the extra $1,500, I think that's worth it.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a vote on Order 18131. All those in favor? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to council committee representative reports. Sam, do you have anything?
Sure, yeah, the community development meeting met on June 21st. We were talking about a couple things. First of all, going over the process of how we were going to fill the school board vacancy position, which we did, and we did it pretty quickly, and it was mentioned earlier, 3 very strong candidates, and I do think we all feel very good about the one we ended up choosing, too. It was not an easy choice at all. And then we're talking about public property, town-owned property, considering an ordinance to sort of control what happens there. Most of that is through Parks and Rec. And what were all the properties? There were a lot. Mitch did a great job presenting that, and thank you, Mitch. That's it.
Tom?
No report from Finance Committee, and we will not be meeting the month of July. The 11th of July. 11th of July. We will not meet in August.
Megan?
Well, the Historical Society does not meet in July, so I do not have a report there. And I already reported on the most recent comp plan implementation committee meeting, so I have nothing to report.
Does anyone else have any other representative reports? No? All right, move on to future agenda items and items of concern. I'll start back this way with Cheryl. Okay, Megan? Tom?
I know that you are going to a conference tomorrow on the marijuana issue, and I don't know if anybody else from town is going to that or not, but I'd be very interested in getting a brief report at some point in the near future, because I know we're going to have to be dealing with it in some way.
Yep. I heard who's going, but I'll let you tell.
If I may, we have 2 people from community development that are going, the new planner and Dave. Cindy is also going to go. And we have actually met with Bangor Public Health, and we're going to take the information from this training, what we've learned from Bangor Public Health, and at your July workshop, we're going to devote that to an update on marijuana.
Lori, do you have anything?
I didn't mention in the acknowledgements that I want to acknowledge or report that I went to a conference representing the town of Orono called the Build Maine Conference, and it was in Lewiston, and it was very interesting. I learned a lot about how small towns all over the world, because they had a presenter from Australia, but most of the presenters from the U.S. were looking at small towns and small cities and how they were using local entrepreneurs and developers to develop small parcels within the town. And I learned a lot about how the people who did that did it, and then they also had reports about what the benefits were for the town. They increased tax base because they took lots that were empty or underutilized and turned them into commercial and residential properties. So most of the people were looking at combined commercial residential, and it was really interesting, and I would love to talk with other people in the community who are interested in learning about it. And I don't know, since I'm new on town council, if there's a format for when we go and learn something, how we present that to the other town councilors or to the community. But I'd be happy to share what I learned.
Great, thank you.
That sounds like a great program that you went to. I thought about doing that too. I have nothing.
Thank you. All right, public petitions, I don't think we have any. Public comments. Susan?
Hello, Susan Whitmore. For those who might take interest in the celestial heavens, a couple nights ago I was outside at about 2:30 a.m. and saw just like a huge glowing orangish red orb in the sky. I'm just like, is that Mars? And sure enough, it definitely was Mars, though at the moment, the planet Mars is so bright in the sky, I think it's brighter than the northern sky. It's also been visible through trees as well. And so that's kind of a current occurrence at the celestial view. You know, thank goodness for the lack of light pollution. So those might be interested. I don't know how it's looking before midnight. I know midnight and later it's very bright and just incredibly brilliant. I was in awe. So it's at a southeastern direction, looking at the sky.
I think we're all going to take your word on that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. The majority of the main population, typically is in bed around 10 o'clock p.m., but I just can't get that Boston, Manhattan, Detroit, Seattle. Fortunately, with academics, I was granted permission to 24-hour studio access year-round, so.
Thank you very much, Susan. Stuart has something for us?
I always say it, but unfortunately I came tonight. I should have stayed home and watched the Red Sox. But I'll bore you with some of my comments. I've been going to mention this for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings. Your channel does not come through. I don't know if there's been any comments to the town or not, but, or it's either that or my TV. And so the sound, the pictures, the whole work, so it's a waste of money right now. So that's that one comment. I was going to comment on the parklet, but I could see I'd probably run out of town, so I'd certainly like to get into a conversation on it, not in a council meeting type thing. I have mentioned to a number of people if they have visited the downtown parklet, and I get the same expression on their face. It's amazing. It's funny. So nobody knows about it, or very few. I did drive by it, and I got a multiple of questions on it, but that's not for a council meeting. The other thing, being a fiscal conservative in the town of Orono, you're certainly not in a majority of people. One thing that brought my attention on this tonight was we got at least $1.2 million sitting aside. Man, that makes me feel pretty rich. And I don't know why it's sitting there. I would think some of that money that it's earning, and it should be earning a lot, $1.2 million if that's it, that we could reduce our taxes. I just don't understand it myself, but that's probably for a discussion other than at a council meeting. That's probably all I got to say. It's the parklet bothers me. As I recall, the talk about it at one of the last meetings, that it could fit 30 people in there, they might be crowded. I just don't know. I use that sidewalk a lot going over to the drugstore, and I'm not sure how that's gonna work out, but anyway. Those are my comments. We certainly spent some money tonight, and it would make a fiscal liberal very happy, I assume, but that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. We appreciate your comments on the parklet.
Good evening, Meredith Higgins. I'm the RSU 26 superintendent, and I just wanted to thank the council, Sophie, Nancy, for your quick work in completing the board of directors seat. We did have great applicants. I'm grateful to the community for having no shortage of interest in this position, and feel great about your choice for the very reasons that you all have chosen to select Jeff. So thank you, and it will help us kind of move forward seamlessly with our work. So thanks.
Great, thank you very much. All right. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Jeez, guys slowing down now. All in favor? Make you work for it. We are.
Sophie,
Thank
our next commitment is?
Your next commitment, there's community development committee meeting